Hey everybody, welcome back to our channel. My name is Miss Robinson and I'm back with another math video for you guys. So today's video is really just going to be a short introduction to the concepts that we are going to be looking at in Chapter 2. In Chapter 2, we're going to be looking at different ways of displaying and interpreting data. And we're primarily going to be doing that through the use of graphs. There are three types of graphs we're going to be looking at in Chapter 2. We're going to look at picture graphs, bar graphs, and line plots. And you will be asked to draw or create picture graphs or bar graphs, but you will only be asked to interpret line plots. So the information I give you on line plots will be a little bit different. So the first type of graph that you guys are going to encounter is called a picture graph. Sometimes picture graphs are also referred to as pictographs, but they are the same thing. So you would use a picture graph whenever you wanted to display data, but you wanted to do so visually through the use of pictures. Now you guys may have encountered picture graphs before in previous grade levels, but what we want to understand in third grade is that the pictures that we use in picture graphs are considered to be scaled. And what that means is that even though I only show one picture on my picture graph, that one picture may have a value that is greater than 1. So I may decide to scale my picture graph so that every time you see the picture or the symbol that I choose, that one picture represents a value of 2. Or maybe I decide it represents a value of 4. It just depends on how I or you decide to scale your picture graph. The second type of graph that you're going to be looking at is called a bar graph. Bar graphs are very similar to picture graphs in that they are used to compare data. The difference is that in a bar graph you're using bars and not pictures. You can have a vertical bar graph, which means, a horizontal bar graph, which means it's going across from left to right. And in horizontal bar graphs, the length of the bar represents the value of the bar. You could also have bar graphs that are represented vertically, which means they're going from the top to the bottom. The height of the bars in vertical bar graphs represents the value of the bars. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at bar graphs. They may either be horizontally represented or vertically represented. Then the last type of graph that we're going to look at is called a line plot. Line plots are great to use when you want to show trends of something. So if you're trying to see if something's more popular than other things, you would look at a line plot. If you want to see how frequently something occurs, you would look at a line plot. So we're just going to very briefly, or I will very briefly show you what a line plot looks like. But in this chapter and in this grade level, you won't be asked to create them. But being a 5th grade teacher in my past, I do know that in 5th grade, you will be asked to not only look at line plots, but create your own line plots. So I'm going to set my camera up so that I can show you a sample of each of those types of graphs. And then that's really it for this video. And that is all that I have to offer in terms of videos for Chapter 2. So let me set up the board and I will be right back. Alright, here's our first type of graph, and this is what is called a picture graph. Now remember, a picture graph is the type of graph that you would use if you wanted to display your data in a visual format. So when you have a picture graph, you want to make sure that you are including the following things. First and foremost, you want to make sure that your picture graph has a title at the very top so that people know what your picture graph is about. Off to the side, you're going to have categories. So the example that I've made is a picture graph representing people's favorite type of sports. So my categories were basketball, soccer, and tennis. The next thing you want to do is you want to have a picture key down at the bottom of your graph. So I'm telling you that one picture, one smiley face in this case, is representing 2 students. So this is what I was telling you guys in the intro. Let me move this down so I can make sure you can see it. In the intro, that in 3rd grade, even though you are looking at picture graphs, you got to make sure that you look at the scale so that you know, well, what does one picture really represent? In previous years, if you've seen a picture graph, chances are one picture represented just the value of 1. But in this case, in 3rd grade, a picture could represent a value that is more than 1. And in this case, one smiley face is equal to 2 students. So you want to make sure that you have a key at the bottom of your graph so that people know what one picture represents. And then once you have that established, you want to make sure that you are accurately displaying your pictures in the picture graph that you've created. So if I were to look at my category of basketball, keeping in mind that my scale is telling me that one picture is representative of 2 students, then I should know that the total number of people that said basketball, or the total number of students that said basketball was their favorite sport, is going to be 2, 4, 6, 8. That's 8 students because I had 4 pictures of the smiley face, and my key told me that every smiley face that I see is representative of 2 students. So I count it by 2s to get a total of 8. If I look at soccer and I see, okay, I have 3 pictures there, I know then that if there's 3 pictures and each picture represents 2 students, that means a total of 6 students said that soccer was their favorite sport. And then tennis, let's pay extra close attention to this one because you'll notice that you have half of a smiley face right there. Isn't that sad? But what does that half of the smiley face mean? Let's think about that for a second. If your key is telling you that one smiley face represents 2 students, then you have to really be able to realize and think to yourself that, well, okay, if I have a half of a smiley face, that must mean half of the value. So that means 1/2 of a smiley face doesn't mean 2 students, but it means 1 student. So when I look at tennis, I know that 2, 4, 5 students said tennis was their favorite sport because I see this half of the picture and I know that half of 2 is 1, so that 1/2 of the picture must represent a value of 1. So that is our first graph. That is called a picture graph. You want to make sure that you have a title, your categories, the key to tell everyone what one picture represents, and that you correctly draw that you accurately draw the number of pictures you need to represent the proper values when you're going on and filling in your picture graph. So the next type of graph I'm going to show you is going to be a bar graph, and then I'll explain what that one's all about. All right, here is our second type of graph. This is a bar graph, and this is a horizontal bar graph because your bars are going horizontally from left to right. So when you're making a bar graph, here are the things that we want to make sure that we have included. You want a title of the bar graph so that your readers of your graph know what they're looking at. You want off to the side to have the categories labeled. So over here, I'm telling you that these, let me move the board so you can see it. I have a label here telling you that when you look at this bar graph, these are the activities that I surveyed some students on. At the bottom, my label is telling you that this is the number of students. So for the activities, I have swim, surf, paddleboarding. For the number of students, notice that I'm counting by 4s. So it starts at 0, then 4, then 8, then 12, then 16, then 20, then 24. Now when you're making your bar graph and you're making your scale along the bottom, you always want to make sure that you go about 1 measurement out than your largest pieces of data. So my largest group was people who said that they liked paddleboarding, and that went up to 20. So I just made sure to include the next set of 4 or the next scaled spot after that. So just make sure you keep that in mind. But when you're looking at a horizontal bar graph, the length of the bar tells you the value of the bar. So if I wanted to know how many students said swimming was their favorite activity, I would look at swimming, go across, see that that ends at 4. And that tells me 4 students like swimming. If I wanted to know surfing, how many students like surfing, I would go to surfing, look at the bar stops at 12. So that tells me 12 students chose surfing as their favorite summer activity. And then the last one, paddleboarding. Look across, the bar stops at 20. So that tells me 20 students chose paddleboarding. So again, remember, picture graphs and bar graphs are great to use when you want to compare data. So if I wanted to compare some data here, I would do something like ask myself, okay, out of all 3 categories, which one was the most popular? Well, the bar graph shows me that paddleboarding was the most popular. If I wanted to compare swimming to paddleboarding, I can look at my bars and say, okay, swimming was less popular than paddleboarding. If I wanted to look at paddleboarding versus surfing and compare data, I would say, okay, paddleboarding, based on the length of the bar, was more popular than surfing. So that is a horizontal bar graph. I'm going to quickly show you a vertical bar graph just so that you can see what that looks like, and then we'll wrap it up with the line plot after that. All right, now we have another bar graph, but notice that the bars are going vertically, so they're going from top to bottom. Same category, I changed the numbers just a little bit, but again, with the bar graph, I have my title, favorite summer activity. Now, what's different about the vertical bar graph is that the activities or the categories are now listed along the bottom axis, and then the number of students are listed along the sides. But I'm still counting by the same scale. I'm counting by fours there. I still have the same categories, and the only difference is that now I'm representing the data in a vertical format, which means my labels were swapped around. So if I wanted to look at this and compare data again, and I just did a visual, if I wanted to quickly figure out, okay, what was the least favorite summer activity? I would look for the shortest bar, and that would be swimming. So I could say swimming was my least favorite activity with just 4 students. If I wanted to look at swimming versus surfing, I could say, well, surfing was more popular because there was about, let's say that's about 8 students versus the 4 students for swimming. So in vertical bar graphs, the height of the bar tells you the value of the bar. So this one's just really quick, just so that you can see what a vertical bar graph looks like in comparison to a horizontal bar graph. The last thing I'm going to show you is a line plot. All right, here we have our final type of graph. This is called a line plot. So notice, just like the other graphs, you definitely need to have a title for your line plot. So this line plot is telling you the number of family members people have in their family. Aside from the title, you're going to have one horizontal number line. The numbers on your number line represent the types of data that you collected. So during the course of my data collection process for this line plot, I met some people that either had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 members in their family. Now, the big thing you want to realize with line plots is that the X's above the number represent the frequency or how often someone responded with that answer. So for example, if I look at this line plot and I want to ask myself, okay, well, when I was going out and I was collecting all my data, how many people did I meet that said they have 3 family members? So I would look at the 3 and count the number of X's, 1, 2. So that means I met 2 people who said, I have 3 family members in my family. Again, if I wanted to say, okay, let's think about large families. How many people did I meet when I was collecting data that said, I have a big family. I have 9 members in my family. I'm going to go to the 9 and realize, ooh, only one person that I met during my data collection process said that they had 9 family members. One more time, let's try again. How many people did I meet that said, I have 6 people in my family? I'm going to go to the 6. See that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 X's there. That means I met 4 people who said, I have 6 family members in my family. So with line plots, what you can do is I can look at this line plot and see if there are any trends. What is a trend that I might notice or that I might conclude with in regards to family size? One trend I might notice is that, you know what, it seems to be pretty common or pretty popular to keep a family between 4 to 6 people total, because that is where the majority of my data is sitting. Most of the people that I encountered said they had 4, 5, or 6 family members. If I wanted to look at this and say, well, what's not very common? What's not on trend in terms of having, or in terms of a person's family size? I would definitely say, you know, having a large family, like 8 or 9 people in your family, is not very common. It's not something that a lot of people are experiencing right now, because I only met 2 people with 8, 1 person with 9. I can even take that to 7. Only 1 person had 7. So line plots are really great in that way, in that they can very quickly show you the frequency that something's happening or what is trending in a certain category, if you're curious to see, well, what's trending out there. So those are our 3 types of graphs that we're going to be looking at in this chapter. I'm going to flip the camera around, close out the video, and then we will be all done with today's video. All right, so those are your 3 types of graphs that you will see in chapter 2. Remember, we're looking at picture graphs that are also called pictographs sometimes. We are looking at bar graphs, and we know that bar graphs can be represented in a horizontal fashion. Everybody do that when you say horizontal, or they can be in a vertical fashion. Everybody do that when you say vertical. The length of the bars represents the value of the bar. And then the third type of graph that we looked at were called line plots. Line plots show trends. They show frequency of things happening, but again, we're only going to be asked to interpret line plots in this chapter. We will not be asked to create line plots, so the amount of information there was a little bit less than with the picture graphs and the bar graphs. So with that being said, that's all I have for chapter 2. I won't see you in one of these videos until we are in chapter 3. If you found this little video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, and I will be sure to see you guys in the next one. Until then, everybody, have a great day. Bye.